Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Bhalabha Giribharadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Bhalabha Giribharadhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamunatira Vanachari. Jamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Shata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottara Shata Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Grantara Shriman Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to Shishiguru and Shiguranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 49, which is entitled Akrura's Mission in Hastinapura, text number 26 and 27. Text number 26. Ditarastra uvacha Jatha vadati kalyanim. That's not the right one? Oh, this is 49:26, so I think it's just a mistake. Yeah. So forget about that. That one is not the right one. So text 26, chapter 49, text 26. Yeah, it's a mistake. It's what happened. What happened is that Krishna Archana, who writes the verse, is this whole week, myself also, we're involved in the camp. Possibly. So then just chant from your phone if you can. Dhitarastra uvacha jata vadati kalyanim vachandana pate bhavam tatha na jana triptyani tatha na jana triptyami martya prapya jatam ritam Dhitarastra uvacha jatha vadati kalyanim vachandana pate bhavam tatha na jana tripyami martya prapya jatam ritam Dhitarastra uvacha jata vadati kalyanim vachandana pate bhavam tatha na jana tripyami martya prapya jatamritam. Please chant. Dhitarastra uvacha jata vadati kalyanim vachandana pate bhavam tatana jata triptyami martya prapya jatamritam. Dhitarastra uvacha tatha na jana tripyami Martya prapya jatamritam Ditarastra Jata badati kalyanim Banchadanam pate bhavam Tatanaya natripyami Martya prapya jatamritam Ditarastra uvacha Dhritarashtra said Yatha as Badati speak Kalyanim auspicious Bacham words Dana of charity Pate O Master Bhavam you Tatha so Anaya by this Natriptyami I am not satiated. Martyaha, a mortal. Prapya, attaining. Yatha, as if. Amritam, the nectar of immortality. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dhritarashtra said, O Master of Charity, I can never be satiated while hearing your auspicious words. Indeed, I am like a mortal who has obtained the nectars of gods. Text number 27. Tatapi sunita saumya hridinasti yate kale Putranuragabhishame vidyutsaudamani jata. Translation. Even so, gentle Akrura, because of my unsteady heart is prejudiced by affection for my sons, these pleasing words of yours cannot remain fixed there, just as lighting cannot remain fixed in a cloud. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swamin Iti Namine Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, somehow I got confused and I prepared for another verse. It's been this week and the next week is we've been engaged in maintaining, helping with the Gita camp. So it's going to be involved both my wife, myself. So, but I don't have to give class today in the Gita camp. So let's read the purports here. Actually, there's a purport for text number 26. Yes, that's a very short purport. And I'm going to also read the purports of some of the acharyas, and then we take it from there. As it is right now, this is the picture. Krishna sends Akrura to Hastinapura to see the situation of that a very worrisome situation that is developing in Hastinapuri. Now, Hastinapura is the kingdom of the Kurus, which are the rulers of the earth. So it's the most important, seat of power in the whole world. And this is very worrisome developments that are happening there, because the rightful heirs of the kingdom, the Pandavas, is specifically Yudhishthira, who was now coming of age to actually being able to fulfill his duty as the king, was being undermined and also usurped. This is the word that is used by King Dhritarashtra, and the ambitions that Dhritarashtra has for his sons to take up the kingdom. So there's this whole situation in which actually there is attempts, very, very active attempts to murder the Pandavas. So Krishna sends Akrura to see about the situation, to confirm, to find out about what exactly is happening. And he sends Akrura with a message to Dhritarashtra, basically that indeed, if these things are true and they're happening, which Akrura confirmed, then here's the advice from Krishna. So Akrura goes as a representative of Krishna with more or less like a diplomatic advice, but also a very personal advice for the sake not only of the whole dynasty of the Kurus, but for the whole world, for the welfare of the whole world, and also for the benefit of Dhritarashtra. So Krishna sends this message. And Akrura finds out that indeed all these conspiracies and all these schemes are happening. And he meets with Dhritarashtra, and he conveys on behalf of Krishna the message to Dhritarashtra. And Akrura is not only is a pure devotee who is in a mission representing Krishna. Krishna gave him the service. But you can see why he gave him the service. He's expert, very expert. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is explained that words in the mode of goodness, when you convey messages, when you're able to speak in the mode of goodness, you'll be able to say things that are truth, but in such a palatable way that regardless, if you're giving the persons, if you're speaking to the persons the truth that they don't want to hear, or the truth that may be sort of challenging to the whole conception that they may hold, you say it in such a way that is such a palatable way that the person won't become agitated, which is quite something. Because we know how difficult it is at times to communicate with persons and to be able to say what's in your mind, especially when there is disagreements and when there is, or you have to deal with, saying something that may be opposed to someone else's view. How to say it in a way that doesn't create conflict or agitation. That's the moral goodness. You're able to say the truth in a palatable way. It's a science, and especially it becomes very, very important for Brahmanas. Is part of the qualities of the Brahmanas. Brahmanas are people who live in the moral goodness, who represent the moral goodness. But for diplomats and politicians, when you master the science, then you're able to negotiate. And Akrura was a perfect example of that. He was he was known in the Yadu dynasty to be a very powerful minister, politician, very expert communicator. So Krishna sent him, and indeed he did the perfect way of communicating to Dhritarashtra in this very, just picture the situation. It's a blind king who is not only physically blinded, but he's blinded, morally and internally, spiritually, by his desire for power. He's blinded by that desire for this, it's more or less what he feels he's entitled to. My entitlement. This is something that you find that sometimes completely blinded people when you feel entitled. This is mine and it has to be mine. And you don't dare to try to take that away from me. I'm entitled for that. And if you even come close to that, I'm going to get you. Yeah. So, it's a very sensitive situation because Dhritarashtra was powerful and he was sitting in the throne that was to rule the world. And he was protected by the most powerful warrior who have made a vow that anyone who sits in that throne, he will protect. He made that vow. He didn't realize that when he made the vow, what about if an unqualified person sits in that throne? And that was something that Grandfather Bhishma had to force him to be part of something that even didn't come close to his wonderful character as one of the topmost authorities in the whole cosmic creation, one of the 12 Mahayans, Bhishma Dev. Great personality, powerful not only as a warrior, but powerful as a sage, He's a spiritual master. So, but he made that vow, and that vow came to haunt him later. Because at the end, Dhritarashtra, unqualified, because not only of his blindness, physical, but also his moral and his spiritual blindness. But he was sitting in that throne, so Bhishma had to protect, is serving his interests. So, very sensitive situation. And then Akrura comes and have to deal with that. How you deal with someone who is blinded morally. And the thing that is very difficult and sensitive too is when someone is so covered by ambition or by this delusion that it's just to break through that is not an easy task. Sometimes we all have this type of experience when you try to speak with someone who is not able to see past whatever conception is there that, defines themselves, like that. So what we're going to see here is something also quite fascinating in one sense, because Dhritarashtra, he has perfect understanding. He's going to express it. He have a good understanding of that he's acting wrong, of his weakness, and also the position of Krishna and the message that he received from Akrura on behalf of Krishna is correct. And he can understand, I'm too attached, this is just too important, and that is not going to enter. So he understands what's going on, and still he's not able to correct the situation. That's the worst thing, because sometimes with persons who are simply ignorant or persons who are delusional, then there's a hope that you can go through. But with someone who knows and make a choice not to act properly, those are the most difficult. Most difficult. Krishna qualified as a mayaya aprahita jnana. People who have understanding and knowledge, but that knowledge has been stolen by illusion. So, Akrura very expertly, he first started by praising the lineage and the character of those of the Kuru dynasty. And as such, Dhritarashtra being, the highest or the eldest of, no, not the eldest because Bhishma was there, but Dhritarashtra was in the position of being a leader of the Kuru dynasty. So he tells Dhritarashtra that you're a great soul, indeed, to be in that position, to take birth in that type of position. You're a very pious soul. To be in that position of control. And you're part of this great dynasty. A great dynasty who have all these great personalities. Bharat Maharaj, King Shantanu, Bhishma Dev, so many great personalities. The planet is named after your forefathers, like that. You're a descendant of King Bharat, and this planet is named after him, Bharat Barsha. So you're a great personality. So for sure, it is expected from the great personalities to be equipoised, to do the right thing, to protect, to give protection by acting religiously, by doing the right thing. So therefore you have to be equipoise to both your son and the sons of Pandu. If you don't do that, if you don't protect and do the right thing, then you will go to hell. And you will be condemned not only in this life, but in your next life. And then he goes to say, Akrura comes to explain, how these attachments, blind attachment to try to fulfill your desires and your pursuit of happiness through family relationships and your personal ambitions that you fulfill through family is a path to hell, basically. So therefore, don't go that route. You're going to suffer. You're going to suffer on that. You're going to suffer terrible, terrible suffering from that thing. And now Dhritarashtra is responding to that. And he knows, he understands. They're well educated. I think I like very much the question that Sunil Madhava you asked His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj. That was very good. And indeed, he is the son of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was a seed-given father. Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. He have the association of a Mahajan, the greatest, one of the 12 authorities in the whole universe, Bhishmadev. He have the constant companion and advice of Yamaraj, the saint in this world. Yamaraj is Dharmaraj. Yamaraj is the bestower of the laws of Dharma. Vidura, constantly advising him. He is related to Krishna in some, there's a close relationship. Krishna and Balaram. And he still is not able to be transformed. So he have all this lineage and he's not. And then we see here that indeed he has knowledge. He understands who's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He understands. And he's not able. That's quite something. That's quite something. So it's very sobering that, for little us, that we're not in, my father, eats meat, and he drinks. He's a good man. He's a very sweet, wonderful person, but that was my, what's to me, And then you become a devotee and you get to know things, but still we struggle sometimes to surrender, to properly, do these things. So I can understand how difficult it is when someone like Dhritarashtra cannot do it, even though he have all that association, powerful association, and that type of lineage, Yes, so this is the situation right now. This is the picture. So Dhritarashtra now responds to Akrura. So we see this. So Dhritarashtra again says, O Master of Charity, I can never be satiated while hearing your auspicious words. Indeed, I am like a mortal who have obtained the nectar of gods. So here we see how expert Akrura was to tell all this, to basically slap him, saying, you know, you are on your way to hell. Stop. The attachment to your sons is going to lead you to great suffering in this life and in the next life. You're going to be condemned. You know, from someone who is chosen to do that and has power to come and tell them the truth like that, you know, you have to be expert for this person to be able to see it like that. Oh, how nice. Nectar. These words are like nectar. Nectar. Huh? How you do that? How you tell someone the truth that what they do is wrong, and the person says, you're speaking to me nectar. Expert. The purport from the Bhaktivedanta book trust. In the opinion of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Dhritarashtra was in fact proud and felt he already knew everything Akrura was speaking, but to maintain diplomatic gravity, he spoke as a saintly gentleman. Okay, here's explain it. Now we understand. It's not really that he understood. He was being a diplomat. And you see, people, when they cover like that, it doesn't penetrate. It doesn't move them from that conception that they're attached to. So they may say something that is what you're supposed to say, but that really doesn't mean it, you know. So he was proud and he felt he already knew everything. So he knows all these things. He knows all these things. So you don't need to talk to me about these things. But I'm going to speak like a saintly gentleman. Okay, here's Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But actually Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments. Quote, this Akrura, thinking himself learned, speaking proudly in giving me philosophical instructions. Do I not already know all this? End of quote. So he's proud. That's why. Pride really doesn't allow anything to penetrate. So for a Vaishnava, when the hallmark of a Vaishnava is humility. And with that humility, you're able to take instructions from any source. We see Prabhupada Saraswati. He takes instructions from a prostitute. We see the Avanti Brahmana. In the 11th chapter, he has 24 gurus, including creatures in the forest and things like that. So you can take instruction. You're very humble. But a proud person, when a person cannot take good advice and instructions, that's a sign that you're really lost and there's not much to do, you know. Thinking to himself proudly in this way, Dhritarashtra appeared grave and spoke like a great saintly externally. Quote, O Master of Charity, just as you give food to satisfy the hungry in Mathura, so you are giving knowledge to satisfy this ignorant person in Hastinapura. So you act like a humble person, but you're actually proud. You make a display of humility, but you're proud. And we have to watch that sometimes ourselves as devotees who are still influenced by our material nature and by my false ego. When the false ego acts, then the false ego mixing with our devotional desires really is just like you putting sand in the sweet rice. Devotional service, your devotional desires are like sweet rice, are sweet, wonderful. But if you put sand in the sweet rice, like the false ego, then it's not enjoyable. When you crunch, it becomes you can't enjoy it. So that's like the false ego. And the false ego, what it does is that, you always want to, this is mine. I'm entitled. So when that's there, then, I can make a display. I'm not proud. Sometimes you hear that. Prabhu, you're being a bit proud. I'm not proud. I'm humble. I'm humble. Yeah, like that. So, I'm ready to punch you in the nose, but I'm telling you that I'm humble, Srila Jiva Goswami comments, having made up his mind that he could not be equal to his sons and the Pandavas, in answer to Akrura's request that he was capable, with cunning, in order to deny his own fault and to deny his independent mind and to find fault with Krishna, he first speaks in order to satisfy Akrura. Now, this is a politician. That you have an agenda, and the agenda is my own interest. And to fulfill my own interest, I can do all these deceiving things, these, diplomatic politicians, type of things. Politics. Politics, creates a downfall in communities in general. So, Chanika Pandit, he said, don't trust a politician. Don't put your trust in a politician. Again, the hallmark of a Brahmana is that Brahmana is straightforward. So, so this Dhritarashtra is being a politician. He speaks in order to satisfy Akrura, he makes a display, but he's actually finding fault. Find fault with Krishna, find fault with Akrura. Whatever you have intended to say, exactly that and nothing else has pleased me. I can never be fully satisfied with your words. You want to give us good instruction. So, in fact, this is what he means. He's saying, I'm fully satisfied, your words are like nectar, but internally, I can never be satisfied with your words. Quite something. Yes, so it's wonderful when you read the acharyas, but when you read the verses in itself, Dhritarashtra is putting a display, an external display that is hiding his heart. And we're going to read, how he sees Krishna is the supreme and this and that, but he doesn't want anything to do with that. It's a display. And it can fool anyone. Of course, it doesn't fool Krishna, it doesn't fool Krishna's pure devotee. It doesn't fool, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti can read his mind and enter into his mind. Srila Sanatana Goswami comments, having made up his mind that he could not be equal to his son and the Pandavas in answer to Akrura's request that he was capable, it's the same thing. So Srila Jiva Goswami just repeated what Srila Sanatana Goswami says. And in the next verse, Dhritarashtra continues with his more or less diplomatic, deceiving response. Even so, gentle Akrura, because of my unsteady heart, is prejudiced by affection for my sons. These pleasing words of you cannot remain fixed. Now he's being more open, meaning that this is my position. Let's see what the acharyas comment. These pleasing words do not remain fixed in my fickle heart. They are unsteady like fickle lightning in a fickle cloud. Srila Jiva Goswami, your true words do not remain fixed in my mind, since my mind is fickle, because unequal affection for my son. You should not be angry with me, since you have a good nature. However, this is said with deceptive intent. So it's quite like, I'm not a politician. In one sense, you can be very naive, and people, this type of capacity, powerful politicians, they can really confuse you. They say something, but they mean something else. They speak very, very, very cleverly. And they know how to say things that reaches you, but they mean something else. So he's saying the things that appear that he is quite conscientious, but he's not. And that's what we're seeing right now, as we're going through right now. And as we're going to see that actually things are going to continue escalating and escalating in terms of the attempts under the protection of Dhritarashtra, how all these attempts to actually eliminate the Pandavas will continue and will lead eventually, as the Pandavas will be protected all the time by Krishna, the whole thing will lead to the ultimate war, which is the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Lot of times, I guess, not only Dhritarashtra, but we also see, we understand what the situation is. We know what is wrong. It's weakness of heart that we still do the same wrong thing. We know we are cheating someone else, but we will still do it because we would think we are helpless, or this is how the world is. So how do we overcome this weakness of heart?
Durvalya Hridaya. That's what? Durvalya Hridaya. Weakness of heart is one of the symptoms of Kanishta. And that's the majority of most of us in that, in that space. It's an awkward position, and it's what it is. And it's expected, because in the beginning of devotional service, we come to devotional service, but we still, so by the mercy of the devotees, our devotional creeper start to, it gets planted and it starts to grow. And it's real. We have a devotional sentiment. We have devotional desires. We're devotees. That's why we're considered, Vaishnavas. But in this beginning stage, our devotion is mixed with our materialistic condition. So, therefore, the definition of the Kanishta is described as Prakrita Bhakta, which is an oxymoron. There are two things that they're not supposed to be, they're opposite. Either you're a devotee or you're a materialistic person, right? So, but then you have this situation in which you have these two opposite things, conflicting things, together in one, one consciousness. And that's awkward because, you have some conflicting thing. So internally, we have to go to this conflict. The conflict is like a tug of war. You have that game that some people are pulling this way and some people are pulling this way, and then who's going to win? And then you have a pawn in between. So the winning team would take the losing team into the pond, like that. So, you have this tug of war between the bhakta and the prakrit. The materialistic and the devotee. So one of the symptoms, there's so many symptoms that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur give, and one of the symptoms is this, weakness of heart. And the regular response to that is, one is the chanting of the holy name, sadhana, practices, and association. And doing the right things, if we start to really try to apply it ourselves to what the instructions of the acharyas give, like Srila Rupa Goswami says, there are 6 important things that we can do, powerful things that we can do that will help us. And the 3 initial ones are very telling, because it tells us, that in one sense, that this is not, a quickie thing. It's not something that we can say, I'm weak. I must be strong. I should control my mind. I should, my heart is weak. I should make it strong. Okay. From now on, I be strong. We do that. We say, oh, come on. I mean, again, did this. From now on, Krishna, I will do. It doesn't work like that. Not only weakness of heart, but among the symptoms is that we're in a roller coaster, And sometimes we're really doing great. sometimes we're weak. And then we go into this thing. Another one is that we can maintain vows. We make a vow. I will chant 16 rounds every day. And then some days, you're sick and you don't chant your 16 rounds and you have to catch up. So all these different things, devotees sometimes they become weak in determination and they, stop chanting, following the regulated principles at times. So these things happen. So weakness of heart. So that's why the process of sadhana bhakti is given. So Srila Rupa Goswami says, Utsaya Nishcharya Daryat. That one thing, this Triya thing is so, we cannot lose enthusiasm. We cannot lose our enthusiasm. You hold to, understanding that how you maintain your enthusiasm? Well, the next one is by being confident on the process. I have faith that this is the right process. So I'm confident that if I do this, I'm going to break through. But, Darya, you have to be patient. You have to be patient. Because, it's going to take its time. You have to put your time. So you have to confidently and with enthusiasm proceed with the process and be patient. And you can see if you have that, and the other three are important, that, you associate with devotees, avoid associate, it's like double one. You associate with devotees and you avoid the association of non-devotees. And so association with devotees and I can't remember the other ones. Yeah, what is the sixth one? But anyway, these are important things. So association and chanting. And with that, the process of being introspective. That keeping a tab on my, I have an understanding where my weaknesses are. If you have an addiction for something, and you start to understand what your addiction is, where your weakness, then you start to strategize how to avoid the things that triggers those addictions. So if you are addicted to alcohol, well, you avoid being in close proximity to a bar. And, because if you go closer to that, it's going to pull you in. So if you have an addiction for anything, you try to find out, okay, what's the pattern that would lead me to be vulnerable to this addiction? So you start to do this type of things, and you do one step at a time, one little thing at a time. You have to be very clever. Like, I share with you, I learned, as a child, to deal with the stress in a certain way. To basically lose my mind in listening to music or seeing some artistic creation, movies and things like that. So that's how I relax. That's how I learned as a child to relax, to settle my mind when I was in stress. And dysfunctional families in Kali Yuga, you find so many ways as a child to be distressed, to be in anxiety or things like that. You know, my parents fighting and this and that. So I learned that. So it's a learned pattern that still I'm conditioned by that, because you do it through your life, you become conditioned. So similarly, after a whole day of hard work, the propensity is that I want to relax by losing my mind into, either doing this or doing that, or trying to see this type of entertainment or not. And now, okay, I can have a TV in my home. That's one thing. So I don't have a TV. Because if I have a TV, I'm going to use it. Then the other one is like computer. Well, you can do everything in the computer. So I know if I open the computer at night, I'm finished. Because then I go say, okay, let me check on this. This news. This, entertainment thing. And then, I'm wasting my time. Because I'm addicted to. I know my heart is weak. And if I put myself in a place that is vulnerable to that weakness, that I'm vulnerable to because of that weakness, then I'm going to be taken away. So then you start to make the steps. Okay, I'm not opening that computer at night. If I want to relax, even though, it's not what I'm thinking, it's not what my path knows to relax, I take a book and open it. Srila Prabhupada's book, some, pastimes and things like that, Krishna book. And I find once you do that, you go like, it does it. And you get relaxed. But it's not the condition that you have, the weakness of heart. So you make plans like that. That's why association,
Yeah, Prabhu, I remember I once read that personal change is often slow and painful.
Yes, exactly. And we have to take it. It's natural. We can now condemn, I'm such a fallen, crazy piece of whatever. So, it is expected. I'm conditioned. But I'm not going to rationalize because I'm conditioned. Then I'm going to give free range to my weakness. I'm weak. And when I recognize that I'm weak, that I have a weakness of heart, I have to start to take steps to help that weakness, Right there. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.